Angelina Jolie Voigt was born on June 4th, 1975, in Los Angeles, California, to actor Jon Voight and actress Marceline Bertrand. She has one brother, actor James Haven. Jon and Marceline had met in 1971 and quickly became a powerful duo as she encouraged and nurtured his acting skills. After the birth of Angelina, Jon had started an affair with a drama student and Children of God cult member Stacey Pickering. She had been given the part of Ophelia in Jon's own production of Hamlet. He reportedly showed his devotion to Stacey and the cult by wearing a yoke necklace. After Jon admitted to Marceline that he was having an affair, it wasn't long before their relationship fell apart. They were separated before baby Angelina had reached her first birthday. Angelina and brother James stayed with their mother, who soon abandoned her acting career to focus on raising her children. However, in spite of this decision, Angelina spent much of her time alone in a white crib in an all-white apartment separate from her mother and her brother. This was often referred to as the Ivory Tower. Some have suggested this obscene use of white was a form of sensory deprivation, a method used in MK Ultra programming. For the first few years of her life, Angelina was primarily looked after by babysitters rather than her mother, who claimed that she just couldn't be around her, stating it was too painful, failing to attach maternally and further distancing herself from her newborn daughter. Marceline took a lot of her pain out on her children, and although James and her were somewhat closer, Angelina completely lacked a maternal connection, living separate and disconnected from her brother and mother. Also, due to the many various caretakers during this time, Angelina had not managed to biologically attach to anyone. Eventually, and mainly due to economic factors, Marceline finally allowed both children to stay in the same apartment during the day and paid a single babysitter to watch them together rather than separately. Marceline became even more absent, but despite the increasing friction between the two, Jon maintained his presence in his children's lives. While Jon was rapidly going into debt, Marceline was starting to date again. She began seeing filmmaker Bill Day. Angelina quickly took a shine to Bill, being the only real mother-slash-father type relationship that she had experienced. March 24th, 1980, the divorce between Jon and Marcia was finalized. Bill remained active in the father role for Angelina and James. During this time, Angelina took an interest in acting. Jon would find her a small part at the age of 5 in the movie Looking to Get Out, released in 1982.
Where are you from, honey?
Las Vegas, Nevada.
Las Vegas, Nevada? You know where I'm from? Me and Jerry, we're from New York City. Hear that siren? They have a lot of sirens like that in New York City. Noise all the time.
It was quite the endeavor, being that Jon's girlfriend Stacey and ex-wife Marceline both played parts in the movie. Jon, having agreed to pay for a house in New York for her and the children, and being that Bill had to stay in Los Angeles to finish his studies, it was clear that Marcia and Bill were parting ways. Unknown to either Jon or Bill, Marcia had an entirely different motive in mind, selecting a home on Woods Road, north of New York, which turned out to be only minutes away from the home of Al Pacino, a previous love interest of hers. While Bill was concerned that Marcia and Jon were rekindling their love, she was reconsidering Pacino as an option. Due to both parties having a very passive nature, and Pacino likely not wanting to be an interloper in his friend's failed marriage, nothing ever came of it. After being contacted by Bill, who had recently been diagnosed with hepatitis A, the two soon decided to work things out, and Marcia moved Bill into her country home. In 1984, Marcia's father Roland was told he had cancer and would begin chemotherapy. This compelled Marcia to move herself and her children back west to Beverly Hills. At this time, Angelina was 9 years old. She was very skinny, had braces, and the big lips she's well known for today. Unfortunately, this was all fuel for bullies at her new school. Luckily, she made friends with another social outcast named Windsor, and she was kept busy with ballet, piano, soccer, and after-school drama class. Everything seemed to be going well. They had quite the family dynamic, and the kids were happy to have Bill around. That was until Stacy left John for a female hairstylist, and he was all alone, and began overly inserting himself into their family unit.
Hey, Bill, Cat!
On April 8th, 1985, Marcia's father, Roland, passed away in his home. This was the gateway that led to Angelina's fascination with the whole process of death and the ceremony that went along with it. She then had notions of being a funeral director when she grew up, and very shortly after became intrigued by knives, swords, and their significance in ritual. By 1988, Angelina, who is now 13, had turned from light to dark. Her obsession with knives increased, and she had fully embraced a Gothic lifestyle. Her interest in becoming a funeral director also increased, and she mail-ordered a Funeral Service Institute handbook, later stating, "Death is always something I wanted to understand." Angelina, now in high school, and being bullied by the various Beverly Hills high school cliques, she once again found her place among the outsiders. She would mosh at punk and rock shows, drank, and experimented with a wide variety of drugs, including LSD, cocaine, and marijuana. In 1989, at 14 years old, Angelina lost her virginity to her then-boyfriend Anton. Upon the suggestion of her mother, knowing the young teens were sexually active, Anton moved in, Marcia figuring she could keep a better eye on her daughter that way. Marcia had even given up the master bedroom to the pair, moving herself to the bedroom next door. Both John and Bill protested this arrangement, but Marceline always had her way in the end. However, what had seemed like a big mistake, Angelina mentions later as being a safe and healthy way to explore her sexuality without having to sneak around or hide anything.
I think if you're looking for somebody else to balance your life perfectly and to give you that perfect happiness, I don't think it's out there. Maybe for some people, it's not for me.
At one point during sex, Angelina grabbed one of her knives and cut Anton, who in turn cut her back. The two became covered in each other's blood, and Angelina had found her newest vice. Even with only narrowly avoiding her jugular vein, Angelina reflects, saying that the worst part of the incident was having to lie to her mother about how her injury came about. Angelina refers to this experience as primitive honesty, that she had broken free of her emotional restraints. Angelina had never really figured out how to manage or express her internal conflict and pressure, and cutting became a regular release for her. After a cutting episode, where others may feel distressed by the whole thought of it, Angelina felt relief from her emotional turmoil. She would go on to self-mutilate for several years, this being a major outlet for her emotional pain and rage. Other people do sexual things or try to make themselves perfect. That's another kind of sickness. Some people go shopping. I cut myself. Most of her self-harm occurred on her breasts and inner thighs, which may indicate some kind of self-resentment for her own sexuality, while others may argue that these were easy places to reach, as well as hide. Around this time, Angelina had also developed an eating disorder, and her rapid weight loss gained the attention of her family. What they weren't aware of was how her anorexia was being amplified by her more frequent use of cocaine, since cocaine would also subdue her feelings of hunger. She was taken to see a psychologist, who gave her the ultimatum to either start eating or be admitted to a psych facility. Angelina chose eating. Her mother, in the meantime, was trying to push Angelina into modeling and other Hollywood ventures, to which, at the time, Angelina was not interested in. It is suggested that this is when she shifted her interest in cocaine to heroin. Her mother controlled almost every aspect of Angelina's life, as well as tried to live through her vicariously, as her own mother had done. So it was only natural for Angelina to explore things that she could control, however unhealthy they may have been. Overwhelmed by her mother's overbearing nature, yet having the inability to say no to her, as well as having an increased interest in drugs, Angelina's grades began to suffer. Marceline decided it was time for Anton to move out, which resulted in the end of his and Angelina's relationship. Angelina entered a high school credit recovery program, which also allowed her to receive credits in exchange for therapy sessions. She recalls with sheer defiance, "The doctor was probably going on about my father and mother while I was doing acid on the weekends and bleeding under my clothes." By the late 80s, John was nearly broke, having donated much of his wealth to different organizations, including the Children of God, as well as the Pauls, a Jewish family he had adopted himself into and whose faith he had now embraced. Although Angelina was unaffected, as she already chose to shop in thrift stores, her older brother James was especially disappointed. He often lamented about not being able to get a car when he turned 16, and chose to sit out of prom, for not wanting to have his father drive him and his date. A defining moment in the relationship between Angelina and her father, John recalls, is when he asked what kind of people she was hanging out with while driving her to a friend's house. She had replied with absolute disdain, "We're all alike. We're kids whose fathers aren't there for them." John began writing letters to Angelina with the hopes of making amends with her. After Bill and Marceline's Amazonia project failed to outlast the development phase, the couple was greatly disappointed. This would be the beginning of the end of their production company, Woods Road Productions, and their 11-year relationship. The two parted ways, and Marceline's attention was turned once again to the potential success of her children, as she too was now single and alone. Angelina was almost physically torn by her mother's attempts to make her a star, and her father wanting her to accompany him to events. She had very little interest in either, and yet there she was, doing whatever she could to gain the approval and validation from her parents that she so desperately wanted. In 1990, while in Japan, and joining her father on the red carpet for the Yubari International Fantastic Film Festival, Angelina got her first tattoo. She chose what's called a kanji, and the kanji she chose was the Japanese symbol for death. This was said to have been a reminder to live in the moment, for tomorrow is no guarantee. In 1990, Angelina signed with Elite Model Management, home of supermodels Naomi Campbell and Cindy Crawford. By day, she was a model, but by night she still adorned her punk attire, becoming especially infatuated with Johnny Depp's character of Edward Scissorhands that was released late 1990. She could relate to the misunderstood social outcast through his journey of alienation and self-discovery. At 15, and in her final year in high school, Angelina was still able to obtain various modeling jobs, including the J.C. Penney catalog and Ben & Jerry's ice cream commercials. Angelina had initially showed very little interest in acting, which had more to do with her father than the profession itself. In the summer of 1991, after receiving a certificate of completion from high school, Angelina decided to return to the theater and registered with the Lee Strasberg Studio. She partook in a handful of contemporary plays, including a part in which she played a fat, balding German man. As a move that showed the utmost commitment for her career as an actress, she moved out of her mother's home and got her own apartment above a garage only a few blocks away. However, others have speculated that because Angelina had allegedly had an affair with her stepfather Bill, her and Marcia had a falling out. Angelina attended over 100 auditions. Parts she was tried for were the girlfriend, the cheerleader, and other similar roles. And being turned down for those parts, she found she just wasn't that girl. It was clear that she'd fit better as an alternative, more complex female character. Angelina was in favor for how it turned out, because these were the parts she liked better anyways. Soon, she was cast in music videos for the Lemonheads, Lenny Kravitz, the Rolling Stones, and Antonello Venditti. Elite Management Company was considering Angelina to be a replacement for their frontrunner Cindy Crawford, and set her up for a full-scale shoot on a beach in Malibu. She turned down the shoot, expressing her newfound love for acting. If she had gone into modeling full-time, she would have been a household name within the next couple of years. In acting, she was still a nobody. She then auditioned for a big-budget sci-fi film called Glass Shadow. She nailed the part and got the gig, but before filming began, the producers had cut the $40 million budget to an estimated $5 million, and changed the title to Cyborg 2, which was to be a sequel to the 1989 original starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. She was cast as Casella Reese, or Cash, an almost human cyborg, designed for human espionage and assassination. Tension arose when her co-star Elias Koteas, who was 32, had reservations about filming a nude love scene with the then 17-year-old Angelina. Her emancipated status, allowing her to be exempt from child labor laws, was the catalyst of the go-ahead from the producer. As for Elias and other staff members, they still felt some unease. This is where we must question the ways the industry takes advantage of wayward youths. In some ways, the emancipation status is a benefit to young actors, but it also puts them at the mercy of industry's adults that may or may not have the youth's best interest in mind. For example, Drew Barrymore, a young child actress who had a book's worth of exploits including drugs, alcohol, and Hollywood parties before the age of 13. When Drew turned 14, she decided to pursue an emancipation. Very shortly after, she started Poison Ivy, which contained very mature and sexual themes, especially by today's standards. It was released in May 1992, when she would have been 17. The internet doesn't really want us to know exactly when they began filming Poison Ivy, but one can assume, based on production time before a movie's release, she would have been closer to 15 or 16 years old when the film was made. In Angelina's case, production for Cyborg 2 began in September of 1992, when she was already 17. And the staff were impressed by how professional she was on set. Although she wasn't quite an adult, she was an old soul. Karen Shepard, who was playing an evil cyborg, described Angelina as not a flippant girl, but mature behind her years. She added, "I've worked with up-and-coming actors like Angie, and they are punks. They throw tantrums and think the whole world revolves around them. She just wasn't like that." One thing I want to mention is that this movie is almost a robot adaptation of MK Ultra experimentation. I don't want to spoil the movie, but there is a huge similarity to MK Ultra test subjects for the Delta program, or the assassination program. To put it simply, Angelina's character glitches, says phrases like "I'm activated," and shows her being reprogrammed, and she's built to self-destruct via a built-in electrode in her head.
It appears Pinwheel has planted a bomb in you.
Yes. Can you remove it?
I don't think it can be removed.
These are all characteristics of a mind-controlled subject, the programming failing, and the methods they use to alter and control behaviors to begin with. Anyways, moving on. It finally came to the nude scene in the very first Hollywood film performance of her life. For this moment, Angelina was able to use the same kind of detachment she felt when she would be cutting. She could switch gears and become emotionally and physically numb to the fact that she was nude, in front of a camera, and being watched by an entire studio full of random men. She was able to pull off the scene, carried heavily by the inner strength she had built after years of abandonment, self-resentment, and struggle. Later, after watching the completed film, Angelina was sick to her stomach for days. She had even considered returning to school and never acting again, and her only consolation at the time was her brother. She didn't want to appear weak in the face of her parents. This clearly had affected her in some facet of her mind, but with how she pushed through everything else, she held her head up high and carried on. The impression she gave the director was completely different, obviously in her attempts to maintain her composure and maturity. He recounted that after they watched the movie together, she said she needed to be by herself, and drove off into the night. After a few days, she called him saying she loved the film, and even joined him that same night for a drink to celebrate. In 1993, 18-year-old Angelina appeared in 2 short films shot by Mark Gordon, a recent graduate from the American Film Institute, titled Angela and Viral, the second Alice and Viral. This was another great step in her career, but her family's attention was preoccupied by the looming lawsuit upon John and the production company he had founded with his new family, the Pauls. In 1994, Angelina took part in the independent drama called Without Evidence, based on the true, unsolved murder of Michael Frank, who was thought to have uncovered a drug ring at the Oregon State Correctional Facility. She played a street kid named Jody Swearingen, who was a witness to the murder but refused to testify in court. November 1994, Angelina was cast for her first major studio movie, an American crime film called Hackers, released in 1995. She was cast as a computer hacker named Kate Libby, otherwise known as Acid Burn. The film follows a group of teen hackers being pursued by the Secret Service. The director had auditioned Hilary Swank, Heather Graham, and Liv Tyler for the role, but it ultimately went to Angelina, a fresh face in the industry. It was during the filming of Hackers that Angelina met British actor Johnny Lee Miller, who played Dade Murphy, or Zero Cool. This would be Johnny's first film appearance. The movie was poorly received by both critics and the box office, as the internet wasn't quite as widely available to the public as it is today. The film was simply too far ahead of its time, and has stood the test of time as a cult classic. Angelina and Johnny, although quite opposite in nature, became very close on set. And after Johnny chased her all over North America, they began dating. This would be Angelina's first relationship since Anton. The pair eloped in Los Angeles in March of 1996. We met while filming Hackers, and I always fall in love while I'm working on a film. It's such an intense thing, being absorbed into the world of a movie. It's like discovering you have a fatal illness with only a short time to live, so you live and love twice as deep. By 21, Angelina professes to having tried just about every drug possible: cocaine, ecstasy, LSD, and my favorite, heroin. She added, "Although I've been through a lot of dark days, Johnny helped me see the light." Angelina's next few films were not very notable or successful, some of which included Mojave Moon, released in 1996, where she played Ellie Rigby, who hitches a ride from the city to Mojave Desert where her mother lives. Next, she starred in Foxfire, also released in 1996, where she played a drifter who unites 4 teenage girls against a teacher who was sexually harassing them. In the same way that she bonded with Johnny on the set of Hackers, Angelina became very close to Jenny Shimizu on the set of Foxfire. Jenny was a Japanese-American model turned actress. Angelina said of meeting Jenny, "I fell in love with her the first second I saw her. I wanted to kiss her and touch her. I noticed her sweater and the way her pants fitted, and I thought, my God." I was getting incredibly strong sexual feelings. I realized I was looking at her in a way I look at men. It never crossed my mind that one day I was going to experiment with a woman. Jenny would participate in threesomes with Johnny and Angelina and Jenny would frequent dom shows and go home and act out what they saw. Jenny would claim, "The darker and naughtier, the better." Although the idea might have been a dream to some, Johnny was not a big fan of Angelina's new love interest. They tried their best to make it work, but Johnny and Angelina made the inevitable decision to split. They ended things on great terms, Jolie describing their marriage as a great experience, saying that it had enriched both our lives, but she knew it wouldn't last forever. In 1997, alongside David Duchovny, Angelina co-starred in the thriller Playing God, where she portrayed a mobster's girlfriend named Claire. It was during the filming of Playing God that Angelina met her next love interest, Timothy Hutton. There were rumors of them being together that then escalated when she got an H tattooed on her wrist. She says that the tattoo was for her brother James Haven, but the timing caused a lot of speculation, leaning more towards Timothy. Angelina fell in love quickly and deeply with Hutton, and it's been noted that he had broken her heart when she wanted to get serious and he didn't. An insider from Star Magazine's October 2007 print edition is noted to have said, "He broke her heart, and that led to a downward spiral for her in terms of her mental health." The insider later went on to add that Angelina had turned to women and back to her use of heroin after the split. Mid-97, when Angelina was 26, she had reached an emotional low and was contemplating ending her life. She came to the conclusion that being killed would have been easier on her family rather than her doing it herself. "This is going to sound insane, but there was a time I was going to hire somebody to kill me," she said. "With suicide comes all the guilt of people around you thinking they could have done something," she continued. nobody takes some kind of guilt or responsibility. Regarding whom she'd hired, the person spoke very sweetly to me. He made me think about it for a month, and after a month, other things changed in my life, and I was surviving again. After winning a Golden Globe Award for her performance in TV movie George Wallace in 1997, Angelina was offered a breakthrough part she had been training for years, due to her own struggle with addiction. She was cast in the HBO movie called Gia, released in 1998, which was based on the true life story of Gia Karangi, a supermodel who becomes addicted to heroin. Her portrayal was applauded by many, being described by one critic as filling the part with nerve, charm, and desperation. Her role in the film is quite possibly the most beautiful train wreck ever filmed. Angelina received a Golden Globe Award for this performance as well, and additionally a Screen Actors Guild Award. Regarding this role, Angelina stated, "Gia has enough similarities to me that I figured this would either be a purge of all my demons, or was really gonna mess with me." It was a scary prospect, and understandably, she was hesitant about taking on such a physically and emotionally demanding role. It was during the filming of Hell's Kitchen, released in 1998, that she would first meet Franklin Meyer. Hell's Kitchen was a tale of revenge, drugs, and sex. Angelina played Gloria McNeary, who sought vengeance for the death of her brother against her ex-boyfriend, played by Mekhi Phifer. When she first arrived at Meyer's apartment at the Hotel Chelsea in New York, she was accompanied by fellow actor Johnny Whitworth, who played Patty. She purchased $60 worth of cocaine and heroin, and for the next 3 years, Frank from the Chelsea would be her go-to dealer. The now closed and under renovation Hotel Chelsea is well known for housing some of entertainment's most notable figures. Writers like Mark Twain, Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, William S. Burroughs, some actors and film directors including Stanley Kubrick, Uma Thurman, Jane Fonda, and Russell Brand, but most popular for musicians and artists including Cher, Jim Morrison, Bob Dylan, Alice Cooper, Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix, and many more. December 1998, Angelina appeared in the comedy drama film Playing by the Heart, alongside Sean Connery. It tells the story of several seemingly unconnected characters. For this part, she won a Breakthrough Performance Award from the National Board of Review. It was during the filming that Angelina came into contact with film producer Harvey Weinstein, who has most recently been convicted of sexual assault charges. Angelina said later in an interview related to the producer's behavior, "I had a bad experience with Harvey in my youth, and as a result, chose to never work with him again, and warned others when they did. This behavior towards women in any field, any country is unacceptable." Although she had chosen to comment, no specific details of her negative encounter with him were released. April 1999, Angelina starred in another comedy drama, Pushing Tin, where she played Mary Bell, with on-screen husband Billy Bob Thornton playing Russell Bell. It centers on Nick, played by John Cusack, a cocky air traffic controller who quarrels over proving who's more of a man with fellow employee Russell. This, of course, is where Angelina met Billy Bob. At the time, Bill was engaged to actress Laura Dern, and Jolie was still not quite over Timothy Hutton, so they didn't begin seeing each other right away. Released in November of 1999, Angelina co-starred alongside Denzel Washington in the psychological horror/thriller Bone Collector. The movie was based on a novel of the same name by Jeffrey Deaver. It is the first in the Lincoln Rhyme series. The movie centers on a tetraplegic forensics agent, Lincoln Rhyme, played by Washington, who is paralyzed from the waist down after a terrible accident. Amelia Donaghy, Jolie, is a patrol cop fresh on the force, who works with Rhyme to help catch a serial killer. She acts as his hands and eyes on the various crime scenes, as he helps her work the case from his bed. The film did quite well at the box office, but was poorly received by critics.
Sure. Are you... It's okay, take your time.
To me, they have the sexiest, most romantic love affair of any film I've ever done, said Jolie. The disgusting truth is that you can have sex with anyone, but you can't have that connection where somebody can look into your eyes and see you and push you to be the best that you are. Though Denzel was a quadriplegic and we never touched, having him look into my eyes was more scary than having somebody eat me. Even at a young age, Angelina had some kind of primal sexual connection with other people. She disclosed during an interview, "I was a member of a group called the Kissy Girls. I was already very sexual in kindergarten. I created a game where I would kiss the boys and give them cooties. Then we'd make out and we'd take our clothes off. I got in a lot of trouble." This has clearly been a theme throughout her adolescence and into adulthood. She's able to create sexual tension when the scene doesn't even call for it, playing off whomever she's on screen with, pulling them right into her lusty bubble. But it works. Some of the greatest movies she's appeared in wouldn't have been half as good without the spice she brings to each and every character. Before we go any further, I do want to touch on the theories regarding an alternative timeline. It's no secret that Angelina had an interesting childhood, to say the least. Whether by intention or not, there are certain key factors that contributed to Angelina's conditioning that led her to becoming the ultimate sex symbol. Here's what we know, based on leaks from inside sources, as well as very open admissions of facts from Angelina herself. Number 1, the ivory tower. Sensory deprivation, failure to attach to any particular human, very little supervision from the parents, and a revolving door of babysitters. Who knows what else had happened to baby Angelina during this time. Number 2, the Kissy Girls. This causes us to question her overt sexual knowledge and behavior at such a young age. This is a learned behavior. The kissing boys and giving them cooties is a variation of a natural stage of discovery for any child. The next step, however, would not be something a child would naturally think to do, unless having had some previous exposure, whether by seeing some kind of media or having been physically exposed at a very young age. Number 3, looking to get out. Her very first non-Hollywood movie was about a little girl, played by Angelina, who was separated from her parents. Any parental attachment she may have had was then skewed, as her bio father played a character in the movie that was not her father. She was then made to relate to a man that in the movie was her father, being played as not her father, and was made to show trust and affection to a man that was not her bio father, in or out of character. Number 4, self-harm. This is a clear and obvious ability to detach from her physical self mentally. Also, not something happy and well-adjusted teens normally do. This is generally a coping mechanism born of some kind of childhood trauma. We cannot consider simply the failure to attach to her blood family and the separation of her parents to be the main cause. Many kids and adolescents face some kinds of family turmoil and do not become overly sexual or self-destructive. Number 5, 14 years old. Regardless of whether Angelina claims to have embraced and appreciated her ability to explore sex in the safety of her family home, it still begs the question of how this may have affected her internally. This was greatly encouraged and facilitated by her own mother. Angelina was a minor, and as far as we know, so was her partner. But by today's standards, this would be frowned upon and likely considered child abuse or negligence. Number 6, Cyborg 2, her first Hollywood movie, which showed many similarities as well as clear references to secret societies and MKUltra. She was also required to do a nude love scene with a man nearly twice her age, while technically being a minor. Keep in mind as well the audience factor. Internally, this greatly affected her, but on the surface, she was able to appear completely composed and unaffected by this experience. Number 7, her drug use. This is a contributing factor relevant to her ability to mentally detach. Now for the alternative timeline. Based on this information, as well as claims and some media evidence of someone who was allegedly a subject under the Delta program, and placed alongside Angelina as part of her beta programming. I will provide links in the description to more information about the very real human experimentation under the Project MK Ultra, conducted by the CIA between the late 40s until the early 70s. It was one large project overseeing a vast number of sub-projects, exploring behavioral and mind control of humans. Their intention was to acquire techniques to be used for blackmail, interrogation, espionage, assassination, and more. The CIA has since released thousands of documents from this period of time, disclosing many methods used on unsuspecting individuals, including drugging people without their knowledge. These experiments were conducted on scientists, military personnel, average citizens, prison inmates, and psychiatric facility patients. Many of the individuals within institutions were led to believe they were partaking in a study far different than what the CIA had actually intended. There's not exactly any hard evidence that the techniques discovered through these experiments are or are not being used today. The CIA, as well as other Secret Service type groups, are basically given free rein to act on the behalf of the powers that be. And since this was all considered a crazy theory at the time, but turned out to be very real, our current reality could be far worse than many could possibly imagine. A man named Randall S. Turner, or Randy Turner, came forward 3 decades later, claiming to have been Anton, and that he was brought to live with Angelina by Marceline and whomever else was part of this plot. Randall claims that he and Angelina were brought together to exercise certain levels of abuse towards one another, as part of their respective programming. Randall being broken in order to be trained to perform covert ops and assassinations, Angelina being trained to use her body as a tool within the industry. Marilyn Monroe is a big hit, so let's give them someone that empowers women as an action star, but while still having a great deal of focus on her sexually. Randall alleges to have later been used as part of what was considered to be an assassination attempt upon Ronald Reagan, when in reality the target was James Brady, the assistant to Reagan and press secretary. Although Brady survived, he suffered from slurred speech and partial paralysis, rendering him incapacitated. The official media story was that the shooter was John Hinckley, and when they had tried to escort him to the police cruiser, they were unable to put him inside because the door lock was broken. Randall claims to have already been in the back seat, and was able to recover video footage that shows him reaching over and locking the door from the inside, forcing the officers to take Hinckley to a separate vehicle. He continues, claiming that the mission was to incapacitate the assistant to the president, causing a distraction, allowing them to acquire the briefcase referred to as an atomic football. This briefcase contained nuclear codes. The media focused on the attempted assassination and distracted the viewers. Randall then claims that as part of his training in relation to Angelina, he was introduced to the family when she was much younger, and he was in actuality a good handful of years older than her. He recalls that this was all under the direction of Bill Day, that the two were frequently drugged with combinations that would allow them to be highly suggestible and have very little memory about the incidents thereafter, having this trauma burned into the back of their minds, but being confused about the encounter until many years later. There was allegedly photo evidence of certain incidences that allowed Bill and whomever else was involved to maintain control of Randall via sexual blackmail and ensure his silence and obedience. Sexual blackmail was one of the techniques explored and tested through the MK Ultra program. Also, it is very common for children who have suffered trauma, even while 100% conscious and alert, to lose and forget many details of their abuse and or trauma, and have these memories slowly ease themselves out as the victim gets older. What at first began as being referred to as kitten programming was cranked up a notch to Tigress programming for Angelina, a Marilyn Monroe 2.0, if you will. The media had speculated about an alleged affair between Angelina and Bill Day, after Randall, or Anton, had moved out. That there was a falling out between her and her mother because of this, and that's why she moved out at 16. However, this could have potentially been a final step in her seductress training, before they were ready to send her out into the world to perform. She would then embark on her predetermined career path, that focused very highly on her sex appeal. Nearly every movie and other acting job she received required her to act out sexual performances and or appear partially or at times fully nude. That is, until she reached the peak of her career after appearing in the 2 Lara Croft movies. She slowly but surely started separating herself from those kinds of acting parts and attempted to appear in films mainly exposing secret societies, secret government programs, and or corruption, as well as films supporting her humanitarian efforts. Now we're getting ahead of ourselves, so I'm going to leave it at that for now as an alternative explanation for Angelina's choices and lifestyles throughout. As I have mentioned, this is all a differently suggested reality, and I'm not saying it did or did not happen this way. I encourage you to do your own research and draw your own conclusions. There is a lot more information out there to consider. However, for the sake of the integrity of this video, as well as my own personal safety, I'm not going to dig any deeper on this. It is a far-reaching, but relevant theory that is presented, and I do have to acknowledge that. Appearing in theaters a month after The Bone Collector, in December of 1999, Angelina starred in the psychological drama Girl Interrupted, an adaptation of a true-life memoir of the same name. After Winona Ryder, cast as 18-year-old Susanna Kaysen, has a mental breakdown and overdoses, she voluntarily admits herself to Claymore Psychiatric Hospital. While there, she befriends a handful of patients, including Daisy, played by the late Brittany Murphy. But she's most drawn to Angelina Jolie, cast as Lisa Rowe, a long-term patient at Claymore. Lisa encourages Susanna to resist therapy and stop taking her medication, which leads into the two having an adventure that ends in tragedy. While this was a huge comeback for Winona, this was the ultimate breakthrough in Angelina's career. The film was critically acclaimed, earning Jolie her 3rd Golden Globe Award, her 2nd Screen Actors Guild Award, and an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. During the Oscars, she brought her brother as her date and kissed him on the red carpet. And when she won Supporting Actress, her statement from the stage, "I'm so in love with my brother right now."
I'm in shock, and I'm so in love with my brother right now. He just held me and said he loved me, and I know he's so happy for me.
This created a media hailstorm, with rumors quickly spreading of an incestuous relationship with her brother James. Angelina commented on the incident. "We even talked about it. Do people actually really think that we're sleeping together? No, it can't possibly be. The Oscars, it was completely shocking to me that it was taken that way. I was hugging him, I kissed him. If it seemed too long, he loves movies, my brother. He knows who won every Oscar. I was up for an Oscar, and he was so supportive. So when I said, I'm so in love with my brother right now, what I was trying to say was, more than getting a fucking award, I can't believe how much this person loves me. Nobody in the world knew that we spent the day in the hospital. It was like, look where we are now. The world saw something incestual. It was meant to be, here we are." The reality of it is her brother is her closest family. Due to her upbringing and the circumstances, James would have been the first blood relative she was able to attach to in her formative years. Her continued heroin use and unresolved issues were coming to a peak. Although Jolie was very in control of her exterior life, managing her career and addiction, longtime dealer Myers shared with the media that she'd only spent about $100 a week on drugs. However, her inner turmoil and extremely manic episodes were very out of her control. Her breakup with Hutton affected her greatly, and she had ended up being put on a psychiatric hold for 72 hours. Days after her psych ward visit, and only 2 short months after they had publicly started dating, Angelina and Billy Bob eloped, and were married in Las Vegas, May 5th, 2000. In her relationship with Billy Bob, the two were very passionate in public about their love for each other, with grand gestures, public admissions of love, as well as wearing lockets containing smearings of one another's blood. This was exaggerated by the press as being said to be vials of blood. However, they would often smear blood around places when they were away from the other, and the lockets were symbolic of that.
Okay. Well, you want me to be honest with you? We f***ed in the car on the way here. Yeah.
And it was the most exciting thing.
Yeah, every time it is.
The two also shared a foot fetish, and were very open about it, even in the presence of interviewers and other media. "We love each other obsessively, madly," says Jolie. "All of those things I worried about before, going crazy, it's all focused on each other, and we're going to explode." Jolie has simultaneously been very open and outward about the ups and downs of her life, while also being very selective and private about certain time periods and incidents. This continues throughout her career, with having many details left out, particularly regarding her heroin use, and later, court privacy orders regarding certain aspects of her personal relationships. In June of 2000, Angelina appeared in her first summer blockbuster, action heist film Gone in 60 Seconds. While only cast in a minor part as a mechanic Sarah Sway Wayland, an ex-girlfriend of car thief and star Nicolas Cage, this would prove to be her most successful film up to that point, grossing over $225 million worldwide.
What do you think is more exciting, having sex or stealing cars?
Having sex or stealing cars?
Although highly coveted for the character she had portrayed up to this point, she had yet to appeal to a wide audience.
Stop it!
Lisa, your aorta is in your chest.
Good to know.
Similar to Johnny Depp, she was considered an iconic loner, choosing films for the story, not necessarily the potential success. That is, until she landed the starring role in Lara Croft: Tomb Raider, released in September of 2001, and an adaptation of the popular video game.
If you cross me, we may not be able to remain friends.
Angelina had also decided to stop using heroin during the preparation for this role. This effectively launched her into the stratosphere of international superstar. The film was a box office hit, earning $275 million worldwide. Although Angelina wanted to earn her success on her own, Jon Voight had taken part in this film as her on-screen father. Some would say that while this brought the two together, it also drew them farther apart.
Why did you not tell me about the Illuminati?
You were only a child.
You could have written in your journals. You never mentioned it, not once.
Lara, I burst to tell you everything. But in the fierceness of my own battles, I strove to tell you only that which would inspire you, would keep you safe. I love you so much.
But I've missed you.
And I've missed you.
During the filming of Tomb Raider in war-torn Cambodia, that Jolie first recognized the humanitarian crisis. Between February 22, 2001 to March 9, 2001, she had embarked on her first humanitarian mission to Africa. She was destined for Sierra Leone and Tanzania. Angelina wanted to see firsthand what was going on in the world instead of just sitting in the comfort of her own home reading news articles and statistics. August 27th of that year, she was named the Goodwill Ambassador for UNHCR by Rudd Williams. From here, her career in activism took off. Over the next couple of years, Angelina achieved little success with films such as Original Sin in August of 2001, Life or Something Like It, released in April of 2002. However, regardless of her box office dry spell, Angelina remained in high demand as an actress, raising herself to the big leagues as one of Hollywood's highest paid actresses, which she maintained for the next 5 years, earning between $10 and $15 million per movie. March 10th, 2002, Jolie adopted her first child, 7-month-old Maddox Siobhan, from Battambang, Cambodia. He was born Rath the Bull on August 5th, 2001. Jolie had visited Cambodia twice before meeting Maddox, once during Tomb Raider, and the second while on a UNHCR field mission. It was in November of 2001, with Billy Bob in tow, that they had first met Maddox and applied to adopt him. However, the following month, the US government had banned adoptions from Cambodia under the suspicions of child trafficking. In July of 2002, Angelina had filed for divorce from Billy Bob. The two parted amicably and remained good friends. they did not regret their time together. Some may suggest that after thinking about the adoption of her first child, Angelina started longing for a more suitable partner to raise children with, preparing to sacrifice her more wild sexual nature in exchange for settling down. Fortunately for Angelina, her adoption of Maddox was eventually deemed lawful by the US, and she was able to take custody of him in Nambia in 2003, regardless of her now single-parent status. Later, the adoption facility was involved in scandal, when it was later convicted for visa fraud and money laundering. In July of 2003, Angelina starred in the Lara Croft sequel, The Cradle of Life, alongside Gerard Butler. Although it didn't do as well as the first as far as profits go, critics noted that it had greatly improved its action sequences. Producers had planned for a third Lara Croft movie, but Angelina refused to reprise her role. In October of 2003, Jolie starred in a romantic drama film called Beyond Borders, about aid workers in Ethiopia. Although unsuccessful in the box office, Angelina became even more passionate about humanitarian causes going forward. An early release in 2004, Angelina starred in the movie Taking Lives, another psychological thriller, as an FBI profiler, Ileana Scott, who helps authorities in Montreal apprehend a serial killer who assumes the identities of his victims, allowing him to travel undetected across North America. Also appearing in this movie was Ethan Hawke and Kiefer Sutherland. This film received mixed reviews, and the box office earnings weren't very impressive. Also in 2004, she voiced Lola in the movie Shark Tale, made a brief appearance as Frankie in The Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow, and played a supporting role in Oliver Stone's Alexander as Queen Olympia. On a side note, Alexander was met with great disapproval for the depiction of Alexander's bisexuality. After what one could refer to as a cool-down period, Jolie achieved huge box office success, and great praise regarding the chemistry between her and her co-star Brad Pitt in the action comedy Mr. and Mrs. Smith, released June 2005. The pair portrayed a bored upper-middle-class married couple who discover they are both trained assassins, working for opposing companies. The truth is revealed when they are both served contracts to eliminate each other. One critic reviewed, "While the story feels haphazard, the movie gets by on gregarious charm, galloping energy, and the star's thermonuclear screen chemistry. The film earned just under $500 million worldwide." Angelina, recently divorced and once again on the prowl, had developed an off-camera relationship with Brad, who at the time was married to Jennifer Aniston. Although they deny any rumors of an affair, inside sources have disclosed that Pitt and Jolie had shared hotel rooms together under false names during the filming of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Whether or not their relationship was sexual or not at this point is undetermined. Jolie would comment on the matter, "To be intimate with a married man when my own father cheated on my mother is not something I could forgive. I could not look at myself in the morning if I did that. I wouldn't be attracted to a man who could cheat on his wife." Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston announced their separation 6 months before Mr. and Mrs. Smith was released. This became a huge Hollywood scandal. The public's reaction toward the divorce was reported in the press, and Team Aniston and Team Jolie t-shirts appeared throughout North America. In July of 2005, Angelina adopted Zahara as a single parent, but was accompanied by Brad to take custody of her. Zahara was born in January 2005 in Awassa. Angelina was led to believe she was an AIDS orphan by Zahara's grandmother. However, Angelina was later contacted by the birth mother through the media. The details and the outcome of their contact is unknown. Brad and Jen were officially divorced later that year, in October of 2005. Brangelina hadn't become public about their relationship until January 2006, when it was confirmed that she was pregnant with his child. Soon after, Brad would adopt Maddox and Zahara. To avoid the royalty-level media frenzy, Brangelina traveled to Nambia for the birth of their first child. On May 27, 2006, Angelina gave birth to Shiloh Novell in Swakopmund, They sold the first pictures of Shiloh through Getty Images, intending to give the proceeds to charity rather than letting the paparazzi profit from the extremely desirable photographs. People and Hello would be the first to purchase the North American and British rights to the images, for $4.1 and $3.5 million respectively. All proceeds were donated to UNICEF. In December 2006, Angelina had a supporting role as a neglected wife of a CIA agent named Clover in Robert De Niro's The Good Shepherd. The movie starred Matt Damon and Robert De Niro. The film is considered to be fictional, although very heavily based on real events. It's presented as the untold story of the birth of counterintelligence in the CIA. January 27, 2007, in Los Angeles, California, Marceline Bertrand passed away. She had battled ovarian cancer for several years before succumbing to the illness. Angelina had arrived at her side only hours before her death. Her mother's passing did not come as a surprise, but she was understandably distraught. Angelina is now seen donning an M on the palm of her left hand as tribute to her late mother. On March 15, 2007, Jolie adopted 3-year-old Pax Thien from an orphanage in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. He was born Pham Quang Sang on November 29, 2003. He was abandoned by his mother shortly after birth. In the summer of 2007, Angelina starred as Marianne Pearl in the documentary-style drama A Mighty Heart, based on the memoir written by Pearl with the same name. The film is a retelling of her husband Daniel's kidnap and murder while working as a reporter in Pakistan. Although Pearl had personally chosen Jolie for the part, the casting was met with accusations of blackface, among other racial criticisms. However, the resulting performance was widely praised, noting Angelina's great respect and firm grasp of a difficult accent. Also released in the summer of 2007, she starred alongside Morgan Freeman and James McAvoy in the action thriller Wanted. Based on a comic book, the plot follows a frustrated account manager that discovers his father is a professional assassin and decides to join a secret society called the Fraternity that his father was associated with. Jolie was Fox, an accomplished member of the fraternity who mentors Wesley, played by McAvoy. The film was another international mega success, garnering almost $350 million, with mainly favorable reviews. Finally, in November 2007, Jolie appeared as the seductive shapeshifter and mother of Grendel in the CGI fantasy epic Beowulf, alongside Anthony Hopkins. It was critically and commercially well received, earning almost $200 million worldwide. By 2008, Angelina's box office appeal had directors and producers offering upwards of $20 million per movie, as well as a percentage of the profits, placing her at the very top of the list of Hollywood's most paid actresses. At the Cannes Film Festival in May 2008, Brangelina confirmed they were expecting twins. In July 2008, they spent 2 weeks in Nice, France, and the twins Knox Leon and Vivienne Marceline were born on July 12, 2008. The first pictures of Knox and Vivienne were jointly sold to People and Hello for $14 million, which marked the most expensive celebrity photographs ever taken. This time, the proceeds were donated to the Jolie Pitt Foundation. Nearing the end of October 2008, Jolie starred in Clint Eastwood's drama The Changeling, alongside John Malkovich. It was based in part on the Wineville chicken coop murders, as well as the corruption of the authorities at that time. Angelina, as Christine Collins, is a woman reunited with a boy whom she immediately realizes is not her missing son. When she tries to demonstrate this to the police and city authorities, she is vilified as delusional, labeled as an unfit mother, and then confined to a psychiatric ward. To conclude 2008, she voiced Master Tigress in the movie Kung Fu Panda. After finishing her previous commitments, now 33, and having started a family, Angelina had considered retirement. She was beginning to realize that acting was her mother's dream, not hers. I actually wanted to write and direct and be more involved in politics and humanitarian issues. I'll do a few more films, and I will enjoy it, and I'm blessed to have a good career. But I've never loved it like I love other things. It would be 2 years before she would appear in another film. The role was meant to be played by Tom Cruise, but a gender change of the main character came about after an executive had suggested Jolie. This movie was Salt, released in July of 2010. An action thriller. Jolie plays Evelyn Salt, who is accused of being a Russian sleeper agent and goes on the run to try and clear her name. Salt was yet another international success, grossing almost $300 million and receiving mostly positive reviews. The last Hollywood film Angelina would appear in before a 4-year hiatus was The Tourist, released in December of 2010. It was a romantic thriller co-starring Johnny Depp. Jolie, as a British woman, Elise Clifton Ward, is being followed by French police who are working with the Scotland Yard under the direction of Inspector John Aitchison. Up until this point, Angelina had participated in over 40 field missions as a UNHCR ambassador, meeting with refugees and other displaced persons in over 30 countries. It was around this time that she began writing and directing more humanitarian-angled films, bringing more light to the atrocities going unnoticed around the world. In 2011, she wrote and directed the film In the Land of Blood and Honey, set during the Bosnian War, following a soldier fighting for the Serbs who befriends a Bosnian captive in the camp he oversees. She had aimed to visit forgotten emergencies that the media had shifted away from. She notably traveled to war zones such as Sudan's Darfur region during the Darfur conflict, the Syrian-Iraqi border during the Second Gulf War, and the Afghan capital Kabul during the war in Afghanistan, where 3 aid workers were murdered in the midst of her visit. On April 17, 2012, after more than a decade of active service as a UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador, Angelina was given the rank of Special Envoy. She was the first to be given such a position within the organization. Also in April of 2012, after a 12-year relationship and becoming parents to 6 children, Brangelina announced their engagement. On February 16, 2013, at the age of 37, Angelina voluntarily received a double mastectomy for preventative measures. Both her mother and grandmother died from ovarian cancer, and 3 months after her procedure, Angelina's aunt died of breast cancer. Following the mastectomy, which lowered her chances of breast cancer to under 5%, Angelina had reconstructive surgery involving implants and allografts. In May of 2014, Jolie returned to film with her starring role in Maleficent, a live-action reimagination of Disney's Sleeping Beauty. This movie would solidify Angelina's ability to successfully deliver roles in film genres that were dominated by male characters. The villain, the assassin, the FBI agent, and so on. The film grossed over $750 million internationally, and would be her highest-grossing film of all time. Reviews for the film were mixed, but critics praised Angelina's performance specifically. Angelina's daughter Vivian played young Aurora, because the other kids who had auditioned were afraid of the Maleficent character.
Hello.
Go away. Go. Go away. I don't like children.
On August 23, 2014, at their estate in Correns, France, Brangelina were wed. Their 6 children were in attendance for the event and even played special parts in the ceremony. Jolie's dress donned drawings done by her children, making it especially unique. It was an intimate family affair, and Brad and Angelina wrote their own vows. The celebration afterwards involved a lavish feast. In October 2014, the Queen presented Jolie with an honorary damehood for her campaigning to end war zone sexual violence, as well as her service to the UK foreign policy. During the ceremony, onlookers had made comments about her appearance due to her slender frame. Angelina looked so skinny, she stunned palace observers. Even the Queen expressed surprise. November 2014, Unbroken was released, an American war film produced and directed by Jolie, based on the Laura Hillenbrand biography of the same name, published in 2010. The film centers on Louise Samporini, a U.S. Olympian and military officer who survived on a raft for 47 days after his bomber crash-landed in the ocean during World War II. March 2015, Angelina underwent a preventative oophorectomy. Despite hormone replacement therapy, this surgery brought about premature menopause. Regarding her surgeries, she says, "I do not feel any less of a woman. I feel empowered that I made a strong choice that in no way diminishes my femininity." November 2015, By the Sea, a romantic drama written and directed by Jolie, was produced by and also starred both Brad and Angelina. Some would argue that this was a last-ditch effort to salvage what was left of their marriage, using the film as a form of marital therapy. Depending on how you want to look at it, the movie could have either been ironically or conveniently in tune with their personal life together. In September of 2016, after only 2 years of marriage, Brangelina separated. In the divorce filing, Angelina requested full physical custody of their children. Many of the details of the divorce are protected by court-ordered privacy barriers.
Do you think Brad and Angie can get back together?
I don't know. I just, we're all saying our little prayers and wanting to be of help.
Yeah, the grandkids okay? Everything fine?
Seems to be.
Fantastic. Well, good thing they have you around, John.
Released in 2017, First They Killed My Father, again directed and written by Jolie, but this time with help from Lu Wang, since it was based on her memoir of the same name. In 1975, 7-year-old Ong was forced to be trained as a child soldier, while her siblings were sent to labor camps during the communist regime. Angelina's son Maddox was listed as an executive producer for this film. In 2018, Jolie was reported to be starring in and producing the upcoming film adaptation of a 2014 James Scott novel called The Kept. Set in the 19th century in upstate New York, the film tells the story of Elspeth Howell, a midwife married to an Aboriginal, while they lived on an isolated farm raising 5 children. Presently, Angelina is set to return for her starring role in Disney's Maleficent 2, which should be theater ready by the year 2020.